I was at Goodwill and I found this pretty cool looking Nerf gun for $2, and I thought I'd paint it to look like a pretty cool like film prop gun. So I went home and I researched it, and it turns out I'm not the first person to have this idea. There's a lot of other stuff out there. I'm sure this isn't the first one you've seen, or the first video you've seen of this. This was attempt one at hanging this up. I kept it in because the camera malfunctioned and it looked pretty cool. I really liked it. I couldn't do that again if I wanted it to. Attempt number 2. Well, crap. Double up the string this time. This is attempt 3. Almost. Okay, there I go. I got it. All right. Now let's get this other one hung up. And I'm not paying attention. I'm not realizing this is not going to be really awkward. I just realized it. So attempt 4. Ah, there we go. Attempt 4. Maybe. I did edit this down a lot, just so you know. All right, I'm gonna do some checking, check all these moving parts and think about how I'm gonna paint them. Here are the paints I'm gonna be using, just in case you wanna know exactly what I'm using. And it's been a while since I painted, so I got to walk around and look at everything. Now I'm kind of trying to figure out how I want to do this. Okay, speed it up. Okay, maybe not. I gotta cut this excess string off. I didn't think about that when I tied it on there. All right, back to painting this primer on, or spraying this primer on. Now this part was hard at this front of this gun on the barrel because of all these pieces that I needed to spray in between. I could have taken it apart, and I thought about it, but there were so many screws. You can see all these holes. These are all screws to take this thing apart. So I decided the best way to do it was to just try to paint in between, and I got a little bit of running in a few places. Oh, I just disappeared. This is going to become a problem with this black paint. Just in case you didn't see it the first time, that's what I'm using. This doesn't go on as easy as the primer did. And I'm trying to get through these small holes so you don't see just a bunch of primer, and I'm going to get some running, and you'll see that later. It's not too bad, but it's not ideal. Okay, on to the rest of the gun. The rest of the gun went pretty easy, although every time I thought I was done, I had to do more, and I even, here's doing some touch-ups. There's my special technique that takes years to learn, that two-handed upside down technique. So all this time I'm doing these touch-ups on camera, I probably did twice as many off camera. And here's the running that I was talking about, and I'm going to point to it just in case you can't see it. I don't know why I thought I had to point to it. Lingering shot of a swinging gun. It's the name of my next album. And this is the next day. So it dried and it looked, it wasn't so glossy. It dried pretty flat and looked pretty good gunmetal color. My idea here was to take this silver paint or this metal colored paint and get a pool of it, and then I would dip my sponge into it, then rub it on the thing. But this cardboard just kept absorbing it, so it didn't really work out very well. Now what I'm gonna do here is take the silver paint and kind of paint it on to make it look like scratches. Like the black paint has scratched off and left bare metal underneath showing. And it's gonna take me a few minutes here to figure out how to get it to look good. Here, I put it on, it looked like I just painted it on, and then it dried real quick because there's barely any paint on there. And then I tried scratching it off and it doesn't really work. This one looks okay. Right here I'm using the scratchy side of a kitchen sponge. So there I figured I'd just take the spray paint and spray it directly onto the sponge, which is getting close. It's going to take me a few more minutes to figure out how to do this properly. Oh, there genius me figured, hey, I'll put this on the absorbent side. Now you can't see what I'm doing here because genius me also thought I'll do this in a direction that the camera can't see. Hey, idiot, turn it around. Show the camera. And it's still not turning out great. I do figure out how to make it look decent here in a minute, I promise. Now, I think I'm trying to scratch it off, but the scratchy side isn't really doing a whole lot. And I didn't want to put a lot of pressure on it because I didn't want to scratch through the black paint and the primer as well. Here, I'm figuring out that having the paint on the sponge, but having it dry a little bit, not so much in the sponge, makes it go on better. And then, okay, speed it up, good. Here I'm starting to figure out, put it on, wipe it off, and there's the cat running around. Put it on with the paint, with the wet paint sponge, and then also on the absorbent side, wipe it off a little bit, and that's where it starts really actually looking how I wanted it to look. That was a bad edit. My intention was to show you closer what I was doing, but I'm too lazy to go back and edit and show it closer again. Now this is, I think, where I actually start figuring out the proper way to do this. Wow, bad transition. Put it on, then wipe it off on the dry side. There we go. Now it's starting to look more like worn off paint, like I'm removing paint from removing the black paint rather than adding the silver paint, which is what I was wanting for this whole time. Now it's actually starting to look like how I want it to look. There's that bad handle. Actually, I think it still is bad. I may just go redo that, but it won't be on camera. Now I know this is getting pretty long, and there was about an hour's worth of footage that I edited down to, I think, 12 minutes. So you didn't need to see everything, but I didn't want to cut out too much, just this took a lot longer actually painting it than I thought it would. And then I didn't want to just cut out all the work. Just, if you wanted to see it, you can see it. If not, that's fine. You can just go look at the end, the final result, if you kind of get the idea at this point. Now I was going for the high spots, but this was such a complicated molded toy gun here, that everything's a high spot pretty much. It's so rigid, or yeah, I guess rigid would be the word. Or, no, that would not be the word. But there's so many different heights coming off the gun. I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but it took, I was going for mostly the edges, the raised edges, and trying to leave all the lower spots black. Now you can see I'm going over some of the other spots I already went over because I figured it out how to actually get it to look how I want it to look. At this point, I'm spraying it, then letting it dry for about 30 seconds on the sponge. I cut the wetting stuff out, of course, but this is finally starting to look like I'm taking the black paint off rather than adding on the silver paint. Plenty of mistakes, of course. And I could go back and do the whole thing over again, but it was really more of an experiment than anything. Finally, looking like how I want it to look. Of course, you can tell this is, painted looking at it this way, and it's definitely, starting to get that worn look that I was going for, but it's not dirty at all. I guess, if you kept your gun clean, even though the paint wore off, that's how it would look. So here's the finished gun. A little more excessive than I intended it for it to be, but I think it still looks pretty cool. I think that the top and bottom turned out actually how I wanted it to. Even the barrel, the opening of the barrel is okay. The side's kind of a little, like I said, a little excessive, but maybe I'll do a little video, like action kind of video. I don't know if I ever get around to it, and just see how it looks on a film color grade thing. Thanks for watching, guys.